Hi, this is Art Gaines. I'm going to be reviewing the first episode of The Winchesters, a new show on the CW, sequel to Supernatural, starring Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki. I haven't really been following the development of this show, but I'm just going to record this first little bit here before I actually watch the show. I'll put a time marker in the description so you can skip ahead if you want to skip this first part. So, just to be perfectly blunt about this, I have very, very low expectations for this show. Now, if I knew more about the people making it, I might have a more informed opinion going into this, but I'm just going to go in blind and see what it's like. So, the main reason I have very low expectations for this is because it's almost impossible for the modern entertainment industry to portray a married couple as if they're actually in love with each other. They seem to think that this is, I don't know what the word is, they're just incapable of doing it. The woman has to be a girl boss and the guy has to be completely subservient to the woman. Now, the portrayal of John and Mary in the original series was, from what I remember, it was actually pretty good, but they didn't really appear very often. They only appeared in flashbacks for the most part, or in when they were briefly resurrected. But anyway, my basic idea is, well, Supernatural was pretty good, so it's not impossible that this show is good as well, but I do not have high hopes. Now, because I have such low expectations, what that means is that if there is anything good about this, I'm going to be pleasantly surprised. It's not impossible for modern entertainment to portray the relationship between a man and a woman in a healthy way, but occasionally they manage it. I don't know how they manage it because it goes against all the wokeness in Hollywood. Now, I'll give you an example. In the most recent episode of Jason Momoa's show C, where everyone's blind, it actually did portray a quite healthy relationship between Jason Momoa's character and his wife. Particularly, it portrayed the wife deferring to her husband's judgment. And I was like, I am pleasantly surprised by this. Keep this up, and I will like this show a lot more. Anyway, so I guess that's the main thing I'm going to be looking out in this show. I don't know if it begins with the characters married or not. But what I am very afraid of is that they're going to portray John as like a total pushover or an idiot or something like that. Because of the modern entertainment industry, they've destroyed all the other great heroes, so what's to stop them from destroying John Winchester? Not much, unless there happens to be someone working on this show who isn't completely insane. It's unlikely, but we'll see. If there's anybody working on this new show who also worked on Supernatural, then that's a good sign, because whoever was working on that show, even toward the end, did have some idea what they were doing. What was particularly good about the ending of Supernatural was that it ended in the way that a classical story should end. It ended with children and celebration. That is the way a story is supposed to end. The only thing that I thought would have improved the story is if the Chuck character had said something along the lines of, "I am the god of this world." Because that would have indicated that the showrunners understood that this character was actually more like Satan. And biblically speaking, of course, God of this world is a term that refers to Satan, and that would have made a lot of sense in my opinion. So anyway, there'll be a brief pause now as I watch the show, and I'll be back in just a minute. Alright, so that was surprisingly good. They didn't turn John into an idiot. Or a pushover. They actually had him behave in a quite selfless, manly way. Story seems pretty good. It's I guess it's inevitably a bit derivative of Supernatural, but I guess I don't mind that. Looks like they couldn't help but refer back to the original plot line in Supernatural, which was, "Dad's on a hunting trip, and I haven't heard from him in a while." Only this time it's, of course, it's not John who's gone missing, it's Mary's father, Samuel. He's after some sort of mystical artifact which can kill monsters, and he's gone missing. So the story's pretty good. The special effects are pretty good. A little bit better, I think, than the original show. And the characters aren't terrible. They're actually kind of likable, I think.
So, Why was my dad looking for this?
It seems like they've set up a pretty clear storyline for the first few episodes, maybe even the whole season. They have a very clear threat that they're facing, and some idea about how to overcome it. This first episode is very fast-paced, though. I suspect that might be a bit of a hurdle for new viewers to overcome. People who are familiar with the original show shouldn't have a problem. But they very quickly jump from one bit of lore to another and one set piece to another, and it was I found it a little bit jarring, but I think I have an idea about that and how it's kind of excusable. The episode has an introduction and then an outro from Dean Winchester, and it's basically him saying, "This is the story of my parents," and it's not quite the same as the one you think you know, but I'm going to be telling this story. So it's very clear that this you could possibly interpret some of the strangeness here as this being Dean's perspective on this story. So Dean is like going to cut out any of the slow parts or that sort of thing. And I don't really mind it. But like I said, this might be difficult for new viewers to get into this because it is very, very fast paced. I mean, there's nothing really weird that they introduce. There's like, okay, there's these hunters and they hunt monsters, and the monsters are they're like standard movie style monsters. There's vampires, werewolves, ghosts, demons, stuff like that. Nothing really weird, nothing really out there. The one monster which is a bit unusual, they actually take some time to explain what it is. So I think a new viewer could probably get into this. We'll have to wait and see for later episodes, though, to see how much it leaves unspoken about the lore and that sort of thing.
For centuries, they've tried to invade. The men of letters stopped them.
So the show gives a very strong impression of being a sort of coda or love letter to the original series. I don't know how many seasons they can get out of that, but seems promising to me.
You can learn. Dig in how to open that, okay?
One thing I found a bit strange was the rapidity with which Mary accepts John into the hunting community. In the original show, the hunters were a lot more seems like they were a lot more secretive than this. But in this episode, John just like shows up, sees a monster, and Mary is just like, yeah, there's monsters in the world. And then he's like, okay, I'm part of this world now, and she doesn't put up much of a complaint about it. I guess you could interpret that as Dean cutting out all the cutting out parts of the story.
Carlos is playing a gig nearby.
After what happened in...
So it looks like they've departed from the formula of the original show, where they just have the two main characters. It looks like we're going to have at least 4, or maybe 5 central characters. There's this girl in the orange here. There's also the obligatory gay best friend and another woman who owns a bookstore. So Latika, Carlos, and Ada.
I'm sorry, I should have been watching where I was going.
Me too.
I think one indication that this story is very much going on in Dean's mind is the fact that John meets Mary practically the moment he steps off the bus after returning home from Vietnam. That is a very, very compressed storyline right there. I'd be interested to know if they make more of this as the series progresses, like making it very clear that this story is going on inside Dean's mind and that we're not exactly looking into a window into the past. There are a lot of discrepancies between the story that's going on here and the information we got about John and Mary from the original show. For instance, in the original show, John never found out about hunting until many, many years after this. In fact, I don't think John ever even knew that Mary was a hunter. In either the intro or the outro, Dean vaguely alludes to this discrepancy, and I'll be interested to see how they work that out. I suppose it's possible that this story is a total fabrication in Dean's mind. I guess they could also do that, though I doubt they will.
Well, how was the movie?
Oh, I didn't see it. I just came for the snacks. But I'm pretty sure the book was better.
So the relationship between John and Mary seems fairly normal. There's nothing particularly weird about it, other than that they're hunting monsters together. But John behaves like a fairly normal, red-blooded individual with some fighting experience. He's a veteran of NAM, after all. He seems maybe a little bit naive, I guess, but I didn't mind it that much. He gets opportunities to behave in a selfless manner, and I think that was portrayed fairly well. So here we have Mary, a relatively normal-sized woman, beating up this gigantic monster guy. And I have to say that, of course, in real life, I would find this very hard to believe. But the fact is that everyone loves seeing girls beating up giant monsters on television and in movies. So I don't really have that much of a problem with this. Of course, the entertainment industry is run by mentally ill people who somewhere along the line got the impression that women in general can do this in real life, which of course is not true. But in my opinion, on television it can be okay just so long as the men are not belittled in the process.
Would have stopped the demon right in his tracks if he made it this far.
One other impression I had while watching this was the characters just keep on talking. They just talk and talk and talk and talk. And I think this could be another aspect of this being Dean's story that he's telling. He's putting words into the mouths of these characters.
Anyway, you are not the only person that I found. Witnesses saw black smoke, but there were no signs of fire on the premises.
Yeah, like I said, very, very fast-paced. They jump right into all of this stuff. In the original show, it took them a while to set up all these tropes of, okay, well, there's some sort of monster. We have to do research and scour the internet or whatever resources we have to find out information. That was something that was slowly built up over many, many episodes. But in this show, it's just, it's all right there.
I figured you like your coffee the same as your worldview. Black as night.
So obviously this is a bit more mushy than the original show, but I suppose Dean does have a overly romanticized view of his parents.
I'm Mary.
It's nice to officially meet you, Mary.
You ever hear of the Men of Letters or Ada Monroe?
Alright, so this again is very much departing from the lore of the original show. John never found out that he was part of the Men of Letters or descended from the Men of Letters, but of course here they're just jumping right into it. John has a message from his dad that mentions the Men of Letters. So there's also this plot line about John having PTSD from Vietnam. I'd be interested to know what they're going to do with this. He has visions of one of his friends who died. He thinks he's haunted, but seems like it's just in his head.
What's that smell?
Sulfur. Demon BO.
So that's an example of lore being introduced very, very quickly in this show. It might trip up viewers who aren't familiar with the original series. In the original show, they would have spent a lot more time introducing that concept, but here it's just, here's the way it is, and that's all you need to know.
Come on, rookie. Learn something.
The comedic elements seem to be a bit dialed up compared to the original. I guess the original was quite hilarious at times, but this is seems to be a slightly different kind of humor. I think maybe someone did use a water gun filled with holy water at some point in the original show, but this has a different sort of comedic quality to it. I'm thinking of like Crowley's occasional dry humor, or the way Sam would just look at Dean and it would be hilarious.
You know, I am kind of nervous. Maybe we could be nervous together. Yeah?
John's obviously very empathetic here, and that's all right. It just occurs to me to wonder if someone who's just returned from war would be that empathetic, because, soldiers have to, suppress their empathy. So it seems like there might be something a bit weird there, but it's probably all right. I'm inclined to think that it might take a while for a man's empathy to reassert itself after returning from war, but I don't know, there's probably some research on that, but I wouldn't really know where to even start looking. I just like to say that a male protagonist doesn't have to be that empathetic. But it's not really a problem either. Strikes me that the cinematography in the show is possibly superior to the original. They've got some smoke machines going, some pretty good composition, some nice wide shots.
Pan'll piss it off. Can buy you enough time to get out of here alive.
John, no. No!
Self-sacrifice, always a good thing to see a male character being portrayed in that way. And they don't mess it up either. So there we saw a werewolf, or a loup-garou, which is the French term. And I'm just trying to remember if the werewolves in the original series ever actually appeared in that form. I'm just going to look that up. Right, so it looks like in the original series, werewolves never actually fully transformed like that. So this is seems to be an indication of the possibly somewhat higher budget this show has, perhaps. It looks like Eric Kripke, the creator of the original show, attempted to create a version of this story a year ago, but it looks like they only produced a pilot episode, so it never went anywhere. I don't think Eric Kripke was involved with this at all, but I'm not too bummed about that. I mean, some of the stuff that Eric Kripke has been involved with making recently has been quite bad, in my opinion. I am somewhat wondering where Bobby is. You'd think Bobby would have been introduced in the pilot episode. I suppose maybe they're waiting to introduce him later, because he should be, in my opinion, quite an important character. I don't know, maybe it breaks some of the lore or something, but I mean, they're already breaking it anyway, so why not introduce him right away? Then we'd already have a character who we know and empathize with. That's not really a complaint, it's just something I wonder about. Alright, so that's been a bit of a review of the pilot episode of The Winchesters. It was surprisingly good in my opinion. Interesting story. Okay characters. I think I care about the characters, which is good. I'm Art Gaines. Please like and subscribe and share. I recommend that you check out the links that I'll put in the description, the other places you can find me, because you never know how much you can depend on any one platform. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll find a free audiobook called The Lure, which you might like, so check that out. It's a science fiction story. Thanks for watching.